If correct, that is a very discourteous to this House. I take it very seriously. Or it could well be that it's been leaked, in which case I hope there will be an inquiry to what has happened here. I will therefore ask the Prime Minister to look into what has happened in this case and report back to me and to the House as soon.
If you thought British politics had already sunk into dysfunction, if you believed the days of backroom spin and disrespect for parliamentary process were behind us, then what just happened in the House of Commons under Keir Starmer's leadership should make you think again. British politics like this one, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Dark British, believe it or not. Over 98% of viewers watch our content without hitting the follow button. Subscribing is completely free because what happened wasn't just a small mistake. It wasn't a technical error or an unlucky oversight. It was a deliberate, arrogant, and calculated act that broke the trust of Parliament, disrespected the democratic process, and exposed just how fragile the moral high ground is. The very high ground Starmer has spent years trying to claim. Starmer has worked hard to build a public image that sets him apart from his predecessors. He presents himself as measured, rule-abiding, and always professional. His entire political persona depends on the idea that he would bring responsibility, decency, and discipline back to the heart of British politics. But with this latest scandal, all of that collapsed. When faced with a choice between integrity and political gain, between following the rules and controlling the media narrative, Starmer's team chose the latter, and the fallout has been nothing short of explosive.
Before we start, the government's own ministerial code says that a text of statement should be provided in advance to the opposition and to the Speaker. It does not provide for the text to be redacted. I am particularly concerned at the reports that some of the redacted information was provided to the media in advance. If correct, that is a very discourteous to this House. I take it very...
I'll take you there very soon. At the heart of this controversy is a government statement about UK defence spending. That might sound dry and procedural on the surface, but the real issue isn't just what the statement said, it's how it was handled and what that reveals about the true character of the Starmer administration. According to parliamentary rules and the ministerial code, any official government statement that is to be read out in Parliament must first be shared in full, unedited, with the Speaker of the House. It must also be sent to the Chief Whip of the opposition at least 45 minutes before it is delivered, so that all members of Parliament have a fair chance to read, review, and respond to it properly.
I will therefore ask the Prime Minister to look into what has happened in this case and report back to me and to the House.
This is not some obscure bureaucratic rule. It exists for a very good reason. It ensures that Parliament, not the media, not the spin doctors in Downing Street, and not a handful of friendly journalists, is the first and proper audience for major government announcements. It protects the authority of elected representatives. It ensures transparency and accountability. And it reinforces the basic principle that the government is answerable first and foremost to the people, through their elected MPs, not to whichever newspaper editor happens to be in favor that day. But Starmer's government decided to bypass that process, in a move that shocked even seasoned Westminster watchers. Parts of the defence spending statement were leaked to select members of the press before they were shared with Parliament. Meanwhile, the official version sent to MPs, including the Speaker, was redacted. Entire sections were blacked out. Information that journalists already had was deliberately hidden from the elected representatives of the British people. Don't think about that. MPs were expected to sit in silence, reacting blindly to a statement whose full contents were already being discussed in the media, while the Speaker of the House himself had been kept in the dark.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by giving my word to this House that this was not given to the media?
Absolutely.
I will absolutely have an inquiry into this, but I would not be that discourteous. I spoke to you this morning, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't be discourteous to you or to the Leader of the Opposition in that way, or to the House, and I give you that assurance from this dispatch.
The reaction from Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, was immediate and scathing. He made it absolutely clear that he saw this breach not only as a failure of process, but as an insult to Parliament itself. From the Speaker's chair, in full view of the Chamber and the nation, he delivered a direct and personal reprimand to Keir Starmer. He called the leak very discourteous and said he took the matter extremely seriously. He demanded an investigation, a full explanation, and insisted that Starmer return to the House to account for what had happened. This was highly unusual. Public rebukes of this kind are rare, especially when aimed at a sitting Prime Minister. But Hoyle was clearly furious, and with good reason. This was not a mistake. It wasn't a clerical error or a momentary lapse. It was a calculated decision to bypass Parliament in order to control the news cycle, an act of manipulation dressed up as communication.
All found the rules frustrating at times, and I'm no exception to that. I had to isolate 6 times during COVID, pulling me away from my work and the things that I love. But I did it because we followed the rules. The idea that I would then casually break those rules is wrong. And frankly, I don't believe those accusing me believe.
Starmer, under mounting pressure, had no choice but to return to the House and issue an apology. And make no mistake, this was not the confident, commanding figure we're used to seeing at the dispatch box. This was a man on the defensive, visibly uncomfortable, scrambling to limit the damage. He claimed the leak was not intentional, promised an internal inquiry, and tried to dismiss it as an unfortunate misstep. But by then, the damage was already done. His credibility had taken a serious hit. The Speaker's intervention had shone a spotlight on a troubling pattern, and the opposition wasted no time in pointing it out. Starmer, the self-proclaimed champion of integrity, had broken the very rules he once demanded others obey.
Fit themselves. They are just trying to feed cynicism, to get the public to believe all politicians are the same. I'm here to say that they're not. I believe in honour, integrity, and the principle that those who make the laws must follow them. And I believe that politicians who undermine that principle undermine.
The man who once promised a government built on accountability was now offering vague reassurances in the face of a clear breach. And it didn't stop there. The fallout from this episode was both immediate and far-reaching. Just hours after the apology, Starmer's own International Development Minister, Annalise Dodds, resigned. The official reason was the government's decision to fund the increased defense budget by cutting foreign aid, a move many viewed as morally wrong. But her resignation also pointed to something deeper, a growing unease within Labour's own ranks. There's a rising feeling that Starmer is no longer leading through consensus, but through spin and secrecy, that the promises of integrity are being replaced by the same old politics of control.
My thoughts are with all of those who did the right thing and for whom this is a real slap in the face. They made the most unimaginable, heart-wrenching sacrifices. And many were overcome by guilt at not seeing elderly relatives, not going to funerals or weddings, or even seeing the birth of their own children. But the guilty men are the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. They've dishonoured all of that sacrifice.
And then there's the bigger question around the leak itself. Why redact the statement? Why brief journalists first? What was so sensitive that it had to be hidden from Parliament, yet could be handed over to the media? According to reports, the real aim of the announcement wasn't to protect British interests, it was to impress Donald Trump. Yes, the same Donald Trump, whose unpredictable foreign policy once worried allies and encouraged rivals. Starmer's team reportedly believed that by announcing a major boost in defense spending, they could win favor with Trump's circle, possibly preparing the ground for closer UK-US ties if Trump returned to power. This isn't just cynical, it's deeply worrying, because it shows that foreign policy is now being shaped not by careful diplomacy or real strategic need, but by domestic PR moves and fear of political backlash.
Their office. This is the first time in the history of our country that a Prime Minister has been found to be in breach of the law. And then he lied repeatedly to the public about it. Britain deserves better.
It means the British people are not being told the full story, not by accident, but by design. That's why the statement was redacted. That's why it was leaked to friendly journalists, because the truth was politically inconvenient. This raises a much bigger question. If Keir Starmer's government is willing to manipulate the process on something as serious as defense spending, what else are they hiding? How can the public have any confidence that future announcements will be handled with honesty and transparency? The defense statement scandal isn't an isolated incident, it's part of a growing pattern. A pattern of saying one thing in public, while doing another behind closed doors. Starmer's whole political brand has been built on drawing a clear line between himself and the chaos of previous governments. But slowly, that line is beginning to blur. The promises of honesty, integrity, and professionalism are giving way to something far more familiar. A government obsessed with control, allergic to scrutiny, and increasingly willing to bend the rules to suit its own agenda. And perhaps the most painful part is what this says to the public. Remember, this is the same public who endured years of restrictions during the pandemic. They stayed home, they missed funerals, they cancelled weddings, they gave up contact with loved ones, all because they believed their leaders were doing the right thing. They followed the rules because they thought those rules applied to everyone. They accepted hardship because they believed in shared sacrifice. To now see those same leaders manipulate parliamentary rules, redact key information, and leak sensitive content to the press for political gain is not just disappointing, it's a betrayal. It confirms what many feared, that the promises of a new kind of politics were little more than branding. that even the so-called grown-ups in the room are not above playing dirty. This moment, this breach, this apology, this fallout, matters not just because of what it says about Keir Starmer, but because of what it says about where British politics is heading. We are watching the slow erosion of trust in our institutions, the collapse of the idea that rules are there to be followed not just when it's convenient, but always. And unless that trend is reversed, the damage will go far beyond one Prime Minister's reputation. It will shake the very foundations of our democracy. Starmer had a choice. He could have honored his promises, he could have respected Parliament, he could have led with transparency and courage. Instead, he let political calculation take priority over democratic principle. And now, he's learning a hard truth. Once you lose trust, it's almost impossible to get it back.